Hello, welcome to the Drowsy Professor. Tonight, we're journeying back through time to explore one of nature's most magnificent apex predators, the saber-toothed cat. As you settle in, let me know where in the world and at what time you're watching. Now, get comfortable, take a slow breath, and let's begin. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a vast expanse of golden grassland, stretching endlessly toward a horizon painted in the soft hues of an ancient sunset. The air carries a warmth that speaks of a world fundamentally different from our own, yet familiar in its essential rhythms of life and seasons. This is the Pleistocene epoch, a time when the earth wore different clothes and danced to melodies we can now only glimpse through the patient work of paleontologists and the whispered stories preserved in stone. The grasses beneath your feet rustle with a sound like gentle rain, each blade catching the amber light of sun that shone on continents arranged in configurations subtly different from today's familiar maps. The temperature hovers around a comfortable 25 degrees Celsius, perfect for the abundant life that calls this ancient landscape home. As you breathe in the clean, unpolluted air, you can detect the rich scents of countless flowering plants, the earthy aroma of fertile soil, and the faint but unmistakable musk that speaks of large animals moving somewhere beyond your immediate view. This is a world in the midst of what scientists call the Quaternary period, specifically that remarkable chapter known as the Pleistocene, spanning from approximately 2.6 million years ago to about 11,700 years ago. It's a time when ice ages come and go with the patient rhythm of celestial mechanics, when massive ice sheets advance and retreat across continents like slow-breathing giants, reshaping the very face of the Earth with each cycle of expansion and contraction. Yet here, in this temperate zone far from the grinding edge of glaciers, life flourishes with an abundance and diversity that would astound modern observers. The grasslands extend before you like a living ocean, their surface undulating gently with the wind patterns that sweep across these ancient plains. These are not the simple grass monocultures that human agriculture would later create, but complex communities of vegetation that have evolved together over millions of years. Tall prairie grasses wave their seed heads in the gentle breeze, creating waves of motion that roll across the landscape like water. Interspersed among them, wildflowers add splashes of color, deep purples, brilliant yellows, and soft whites that create a natural tapestry of extraordinary beauty and complexity. The soil beneath this grassland paradise tells its own story of abundance and fertility. Generations of plants have lived and died here, their remains enriching the earth with organic matter that creates some of the most productive land the planet has ever known. The root systems of the grasses extend deep into this rich soil, some reaching down several meters to tap into groundwater resources and nutrients that support the remarkable productivity visible above ground. This underground network of roots creates a natural infrastructure that stores carbon, prevents erosion, and maintains the stability of this ecosystem through the various climatic changes that characterize the Pleistocene period. As your eyes adjust to the subtle details of this ancient landscape, you begin to notice the intricate relationships that bind this grassland community together. Insects move among the flower heads with purposeful efficiency, their bodies dusted with pollen as they go about the ancient work of fertilization that has sustained flowering plants for over 100 million years. Butterflies dance through the air with movements that seem almost musical, their wings catching and reflecting the golden light in brief flashes of color that add visual rhythm to the peaceful scene. The sounds of this Pleistocene grassland create their own gentle symphony. The rustling of grass in the wind provides a constant, soothing background, like the whisper of waves on a distant shore. Bird songs drift across the landscape, but these are the voices of species that modern ears have never heard. Evolutionary experiments that flourished in this ancient world before taking their own unique paths through time. Their melodies are hauntingly beautiful, with complex harmonies and rhythms that speak to the sophisticated communication systems that evolved in this rich ecosystem. The water sources that sustain this grassland paradise reveal themselves through subtle signs in the landscape. In the distance, you can make out the green ribbon of vegetation that marks the course of a meandering river, its waters fed by the seasonal melting of distant ice sheets and the regular patterns of rainfall that characterize this temperate climate. Smaller streams branch off from this main watercourse, creating a network of life-giving channels that ensure adequate moisture reaches every part of this vast grassland system. The climate of this Pleistocene world operates according to patterns both familiar and strange to modern sensibilities. The seasons follow their ancient rhythm, but the temperature variations and precipitation patterns reflect the complex interactions between massive ice sheets, ocean currents, and atmospheric circulation systems that differ significantly from today's climate regime. Winters here are cooler than the corresponding latitudes of the modern world, while summers maintain a warmth that supports extraordinary biological productivity throughout the growing season. As the afternoon light begins to shift toward the warmer tones that herald the approach of evening, the grassland takes on an almost magical quality. The tall grasses catch and hold the golden light, creating a landscape that seems to glow with its own internal illumination. The air itself seems to shimmer with warmth and the invisible presence of countless tiny organisms that make their living in this aerial environment. Bacteria, fungal spores, and microscopic animals that play essential roles in the nutrient cycles that sustain this ecosystem. The horizon stretches away in all directions, broken only by occasional groves of trees that mark the locations of streams or slight depressions where additional moisture supports these larger plants. These woodland islands in the sea of grass provide crucial habitat diversity, offering shelter and specialized resources for animals that need more than the grassland can provide. The trees themselves represent ancient lineages, early oaks, primitive willows, and conifers that bridge the evolutionary gap between the forests of the Mesozoic era and the familiar woodlands of more recent times. The seasonal patterns that govern this Pleistocene grassland create rhythms of abundance and scarcity that have shaped the evolution of every creature that calls this ecosystem home. Spring arrives with a burst of growth and flowering that transforms the landscape almost overnight, as dormant seeds respond to warming temperatures and increasing daylight hours. The early flowers provide crucial resources for emerging insects, while the new grass growth supports the herbivorous animals that form the foundation of this ecosystem's complex food webs. Summer brings the peak of biological activity, when the long days and warm temperatures allow plants to achieve maximum photosynthetic productivity. The grassland during these months resembles a vast factory for converting sunlight into the organic compounds that will sustain life throughout the year. The abundance of plant material supports enormous populations of herbivorous animals, from the smallest insects to the massive megafauna that represents some of the most spectacular creatures ever to walk the earth. As autumn approaches, the grassland begins its preparation for the challenging months ahead. Seeds mature and disperse, ensuring the continuation of plant communities through the winter and into the following growing season. The changing light triggers migrations and behavioral changes in animals as they respond to the ancient signals that have guided survival strategies for millions of years. The grass itself begins to transfer nutrients from its leaves down into root systems, creating underground storage organs that will sustain the plants through the dormant season. Winter in this Pleistocene grassland brings its own particular beauty and challenges. Snow may cover the ground for extended periods, but the deep root systems of the grasses and the stored nutrients in the soil ensure that this ecosystem can support life even during the harshest months. The snow itself serves as insulation, protecting dormant plants and small animals from the most extreme temperature fluctuations while storing moisture that will be released gradually during the spring thaw. The geological foundations of this grassland reveal stories that span millions of years, as the bedrock beneath your feet represents the accumulated history of ancient seas, mountain building episodes, and the patient work of erosion and deposition that have shaped this landscape. The soil layers tell more recent stories, preserving evidence of climate changes, volcanic eruptions, and the comings and goings of various plant and animal communities that have occupied this space throughout the Pleistocene period. The air quality in this ancient world surpasses anything that modern humans have experienced, unmarked by industrial pollution or the chemical signatures of intensive agriculture. Each breath brings pure, clean air enriched with the oxygen produced by vast expanses of photosynthesizing vegetation and free from the particulates and gases that characterize the atmosphere of the industrial age. The clarity of this air allows for visibility that extends to the horizon in every direction, creating a sense of openness and freedom that speaks to fundamental human needs for space and natural beauty. As evening approaches and the light continues to shift toward the warmer end of the spectrum, the grassland begins to reveal some of its more secretive inhabitants. Small mammals emerge from burrow systems that honeycomb the soil, their presence evident in the careful movements of grass that marks their passage through this green world. These creatures represent evolutionary lineages that are experimenting with the ecological opportunities provided by grassland ecosystems, developing the specialized adaptations that will allow some of their descendants to thrive in the grasslands of the modern world. The insect life of this Pleistocene grassland displays diversity and abundance that would astound modern observers accustomed to the simplified ecosystems of agricultural landscapes. Every layer of vegetation supports its own specialized community of arthropods, from the soil-dwelling creatures that process organic matter and maintain soil health to the aerial species that move pollen and seeds across vast distances. The complex interactions between these insects and the plants they depend upon represent millions of years of coevolutionary refinement, creating relationships of extraordinary precision and mutual benefit. The evening brings subtle changes in temperature and humidity that trigger behavioral responses throughout the grassland community. Flowers that remained closed during the heat of the day begin to open, releasing fragrances designed to attract nocturnal pollinators. The air fills with new scents, sweet floral perfumes, the green smell of growing vegetation, and the earthy aromas released as cooling temperatures allow moisture to condense on plant surfaces. This ancient grassland serves as the stage for one of evolution's most remarkable experiments in predatory excellence. Somewhere in this vast expanse of golden grass, the most magnificent hunters the world has ever known are beginning to stir from their daytime rest, preparing for the activities that will define their role as the apex predators of this Pleistocene world. Their presence is not yet visible, but the signs of their influence can be read in the alert postures of herbivorous animals and the complex behavioral adaptations that have evolved in response to the hunting pressures they represent. The interconnectedness of this grassland ecosystem becomes apparent as you observe the subtle ways in which every component influences every other part of the system. The grass depends upon the large herbivores to maintain optimal growing conditions through their grazing activities, while the herbivores depend upon the grass for sustenance. The predators regulate herbivore populations, preventing overgrazing that would damage the grassland, while the grassland provides the hunting grounds that allow predators to pursue their prey efficiently. As the golden light of this Pleistocene evening continues to deepen, painting the grassland in ever richer hues of amber and bronze, we begin to trace the remarkable evolutionary journey that led to the emergence of one of nature's most extraordinary predators. The story of the saber-toothed cat begins not in these Pleistocene grasslands, but millions of years earlier in the warm, humid forests of the Oligocene epoch, when the first tentative experiments in elongated canine teeth appeared among the early felids that were just beginning to explore the possibilities of specialized predation. Picture, if you will, the gradual transformation that unfolded across geological time, as natural selection worked its patient magic on generation after generation of early cats, slowly refining and perfecting the anatomical innovations that would eventually culminate in the magnificent creatures that ruled these ancient grasslands. The process began with subtle changes, canine teeth that grew just slightly longer than those of their ancestors, jaw muscles that developed marginally more power, skulls that adapted incrementally to accommodate the mechanical stresses of wielding these emerging weapons. The earliest ancestors of the saber-toothed cats lived in a world very different from these Pleistocene grasslands, a world of dense forests and abundant rainfall, where the hunting strategies that would later prove so effective on open plains first began to take shape. These primitive felids, no larger than modern house cats, prowled through undergrowth thick with ferns and early flowering plants, their slightly elongated canines allowing them to dispatch prey with efficiency that gave them crucial advantages in the competitive world of early mammalian predation. The evolutionary pressures that drove the development of saber teeth operated on multiple levels simultaneously, creating a complex feedback system that gradually shaped every aspect of these animals' anatomy and behavior. As their canine teeth grew longer and more specialized, their skull structure had to adapt to accommodate the increased size and different orientation of these weapons. The temporal muscles that power jaw closure grew larger and more powerful, while the skull itself became more robust to handle the mechanical stresses involved in wielding such formidable weapons. The neck and shoulder anatomy of these evolving predators underwent equally dramatic changes as they adapted to the hunting techniques that their specialized teeth made possible. The neck muscles grew stronger and more precisely controlled, allowing for the devastating precision that would become the hallmark of saber-toothed hunting. The shoulder structure evolved to provide the stability and leverage necessary for delivering the powerful downward strikes that would make these weapons so effective against large prey. As we trace this evolutionary journey forward through time, we witness the gradual emergence of the body plan that would eventually produce the magnificent Smilodon fatalis, the most famous and successful of all saber-toothed cats. The transformation occurred slowly, across millions of years and thousands of generations, each small change tested against the rigorous demands of survival in an increasingly competitive world where only the most perfectly adapted predators could hope to thrive. The climate changes that characterized the transition from the Oligocene through the Miocene and into the Pliocene epochs created shifting selection pressures that favored different adaptations at different times. As forests gave way to more open woodlands and eventually to the grasslands we see before us, the hunting strategies that worked well in dense cover had to be modified and refined for success in more open terrain. The prey animals that these evolving predators hunted were themselves undergoing dramatic evolutionary changes, growing larger and developing more sophisticated defensive strategies as the grassland ecosystems provided new opportunities for herbivorous mammals to experiment with gigantism. The evolutionary arms race between predator and prey drove both groups to ever greater extremes of specialization, creating the remarkable fauna that characterizes this Pleistocene world. By the time we reach the Pliocene epoch, just a few million years before our present moment in this ancient grassland, the saber-toothed cats had achieved the basic body plan that would make them the dominant predators of the Pleistocene. Their canine teeth had grown to truly impressive proportions, some species developing sabers that extended well below the lower jaw, even when the mouth was closed. The skull had evolved to accommodate these weapons while maintaining the bite force necessary to make them effective. The social behaviors that would eventually characterize the most successful saber-toothed species began to emerge during this period as well, as the demands of hunting increasingly large and dangerous prey favored individuals who could cooperate effectively with their relatives and packmates. The development of more sophisticated communication systems allowed for the coordination of hunting strategies that would have been impossible for solitary predators to execute successfully. The body size of these evolving predators increased steadily throughout the Pliocene as the availability of large prey created opportunities for cats that could grow to truly impressive proportions. The largest species eventually reached weights approaching 400 kilograms, making them among the most massive terrestrial predators ever to evolve. This increase in size brought with it new challenges and opportunities, requiring adaptations in everything from cardiovascular system efficiency to thermal regulation strategies. The hunting techniques that these cats developed represented a remarkable convergence of anatomical specialization and behavioral innovation. The famous saber teeth were not used for slashing or cutting, as early researchers had hypothesized, but rather for delivering precisely placed puncture wounds to the throat and major blood vessels of prey animals. This required extraordinary precision and timing, as well as the ability to immobilize struggling prey long enough to position the sabers correctly. The forelimbs of these predators evolved to become incredibly powerful, developing muscle mass and bone structure that exceeded that of any modern cat by enormous margins. These adaptations allowed them to grapple with and control prey animals that were often larger than themselves, using their superior strength and leverage to position victims for the precise saber strikes that would end the hunt quickly and efficiently. The development of pack hunting behaviors among some species of saber-toothed cats represented one of the most significant behavioral innovations in predator evolution. Unlike modern big cats, which are predominantly solitary hunters, several species of saber-toothed cats developed sophisticated social structures that allowed them to coordinate their hunting efforts and take down prey that would have been impossible for individual predators to handle. The communication systems that evolved to support these pack hunting behaviors included a range of vocalizations, scent marking techniques, and visual signals that allowed pack members to coordinate their movements and hunting strategies across considerable distances. The famous roar of the saber-toothed cat, while different in acoustic properties from the roars of modern lions or tigers, served similar functions in maintaining pack cohesion and territorial boundaries. The territorial systems that these predators developed reflected their need for large hunting grounds capable of supporting both their substantial body weights and the energy demands of their hunting lifestyle. Individual territories, or pack territories, could span hundreds of square kilometers, with complex boundary systems that were maintained through scent marking, vocal communications, and occasional direct confrontations between neighboring groups. The seasonal behaviors of these magnificent predators followed the rhythms of their prey animals, with hunting intensity varying according to the availability of suitable targets and the energy demands of reproduction and territory maintenance. During the abundant summer months, when prey animals were at their peak condition and most numerous, the saber-toothed cats could afford to be selective in their hunting choices, targeting the largest and most nutritious individuals. The denning behaviors of these cats reflect their need for secure locations where vulnerable cubs could be raised safely while the adults pursued their demanding hunting lifestyle. Den sites were typically chosen in rocky outcroppings, dense vegetation, or other locations that provided both concealment and multiple escape routes in case of danger. The reproductive strategies of saber-toothed cats had to balance the energy demands of raising large, slow-developing cubs with the requirements of maintaining hunting efficiency throughout the extended parental care period. Cubs remained dependent on their parents for much longer than modern cat species, requiring extended periods of instruction in the complex hunting techniques that made their species so successful. The ecological role that these predators played in their Pleistocene ecosystems extended far beyond simple predation, as their hunting activities helped to maintain the health and diversity of herbivore populations, while their territorial behaviors influenced the spatial distribution of prey species across the landscape. The presence of saber-toothed cats created a network of behavioral responses among prey animals that shaped everything from feeding patterns to migration routes. The adaptations that allowed these cats to thrive in the challenging environment of the Pleistocene grasslands included not only their famous dental weapons and powerful build, but also more subtle characteristics such as enhanced sensory capabilities, improved digestive efficiency for processing large quantities of meat, and cardiovascular adaptations that supported their high-energy hunting lifestyle. The coevolutionary relationships between saber-toothed cats and their prey created a dynamic system of adaptation and counter-adaptation that drove both groups to remarkable extremes of specialization. As prey animals developed better defensive strategies, predators evolved more effective hunting techniques, creating an ongoing cycle of evolutionary innovation that reached its peak during the Pleistocene epoch. The The success of these magnificent predators can be measured not only in their wide geographic distribution and long evolutionary persistence, but also in their profound influence on the ecosystems they inhabited. Their presence shaped the behavior, distribution, and evolution of countless other species, creating ecological relationships that persisted for millions of years before finally ending with the climatic changes that marked the close of the Pleistocene epoch. As we stand here in this ancient grassland, surrounded by the sights and sounds of a world that these remarkable predators called home, we can begin to appreciate the extraordinary evolutionary journey that brought them to this moment of perfection. Their story is one of gradual refinement and increasing specialization, of anatomical innovations tested and proven across millions of years of successful hunting, and of behavioral adaptations that allowed them to thrive in one of the most challenging and competitive environments the Earth has ever known. The legacy of these evolutionary giants extends far beyond their own extinction, as their innovations in predatory anatomy and behavior influenced the development of countless other species and helped to shape the modern ecosystems that descended from these Pleistocene communities. Their story reminds us that evolution is not a linear progression towards some predetermined goal, but rather an ongoing experiment in adaptation and survival that produces remarkable diversity and complexity across the vast expanses of geological time. The evening light continues to deepen across this ancient grassland, and somewhere in the golden expanse before us, the descendants of that remarkable evolutionary journey are preparing for the activities that will demonstrate why they became the most successful large predators of their time. As twilight begins to settle over the vast Pleistocene grassland, the first stirrings of nocturnal activity begin to ripple through the ecosystem like gentle waves across a peaceful lake. The temperature has dropped to a comfortable 22 degrees Celsius, and the air carries the subtle scents that signal the transition from day to night. The cooling earth, the evening dew beginning to form on grass blades, and something else, something that speaks of power and precision moving through this ancient landscape with the fluid grace of evolution's finest predatory achievement. In a grove of early oak trees that borders a meandering stream about 2 kilometers from where you stand, a magnificent creature begins to stretch and yawn, her powerful muscles rippling beneath a coat of tawny fur as she emerges from the deep afternoon rest that has prepared her for the evening's activities. This is Smilodon fatalis, a female in her prime, weighing nearly 200 kilograms and representing the pinnacle of saber-toothed evolution. Her massive head, nearly twice the size of a modern lion's, moves with deliberate grace as she surveys her territory through amber eyes that reflect an intelligence honed by millions of years of predatory excellence. The most striking feature of this magnificent predator, of course, are the twin sabers that extend like polished ivory daggers from her upper jaw. Each canine tooth measures over 17 centimeters in length, curved slightly backward and honed to razor sharpness through the natural processes of feeding and maintenance that keep these remarkable weapons in perfect condition. The teeth themselves are not merely enlarged versions of normal cat canines, but rather highly specialized instruments that have been refined through countless generations of natural selection to perform their deadly function with maximum efficiency and precision. The skull that houses these impressive weapons represents a masterpiece of evolutionary engineering, with every bone and muscle adapted to support the unique hunting strategy that these sabers make possible. The temporal muscles that provide jaw-closing power are enormous, creating the characteristic bulge that gives the saber-toothed cat's head its distinctive profile. Yet despite this massive musculature, the jaw-opening mechanism is equally remarkable, allowing the mouth to gape at angles that would be impossible for other cats, providing the clearance necessary for the long sabers to function effectively. As our magnificent predator rises from her resting place and begins to move through the grove with fluid, silent steps, every aspect of her anatomy speaks to the specialized hunting techniques that have made her species the most successful large predator of the Pleistocene epoch. Her forequarters are massively developed, with shoulders and forelimbs that dwarf those of any modern cat, providing the strength necessary to grapple with and control prey animals that often exceed her own considerable weight. The hunting strategy that these anatomical adaptations support represents a fundamental departure from the techniques employed by modern big cats. Rather than relying on a suffocating bite to the throat or a spine-severing bite to the neck, the saber-toothed cat has evolved to deliver precisely placed puncture wounds that sever major blood vessels and cause rapid unconsciousness through blood loss. This technique requires extraordinary precision and timing, as well as the ability to completely immobilize struggling prey during the crucial moments when the sabers are positioned and deployed. The sensory capabilities that support this hunting strategy are equally remarkable, with enhanced hearing that can detect the slightest movement of prey animals across considerable distances, and night vision that allows for effective hunting in the low-light conditions when many prey species are most active. The whiskers that adorn her broad muzzle are particularly well-developed, providing tactile information that helps guide the precise placement of the killing bite even in complete darkness. The behavioral adaptations that complement these physical specializations reveal themselves as our predator begins to move through her territory with the patient, methodical approach that characterizes saber-toothed hunting. Unlike the explosive speed of cheetahs or the patient stalking of modern lions, the saber-toothed cat employs a hunting strategy based on careful positioning, precise timing, and overwhelming power applied at exactly the right moment. Her movement through the landscape is almost silent, despite her considerable size and weight. Each step is placed with careful consideration of the terrain beneath her massive paws, avoiding dry leaves and loose stones that might create sounds that could alert potential prey to her presence. The soft pads of her feet spread slightly with each step, distributing her weight and providing the traction necessary for the sudden bursts of acceleration that will be crucial to her hunting success. The territory that she patrols encompasses nearly 50 square kilometers of prime Pleistocene habitat, including grasslands, woodland edges, and stream valleys that provide the diverse hunting opportunities necessary to support a predator of her size and energy requirements. This territory is maintained through a complex system of scent marking, vocal communications, and occasional confrontations with neighboring saber-toothed cats who might encroach upon her hunting grounds. The scent marking system that these cats employ involves not only the familiar urine marking used by modern cats, but also specialized scent glands that produce chemical signatures unique to each individual. These scent marks convey detailed information about the marking animal's health, reproductive status, and territorial claims, creating a complex communication network that helps minimize dangerous confrontations between these powerful predators. As she moves through her territory, our magnificent hunter pauses frequently to investigate scent marks and other signs that indicate the recent presence and activities of potential prey animals. Her broad nostrils flare slightly as she analyzes the complex chemical information carried on the evening breeze, sorting through the multitude of scents to identify those that indicate suitable hunting opportunities. The prey selection criteria that guide saber-toothed hunting strategies reflect both the capabilities and limitations of their specialized anatomy. While these cats are certainly capable of taking smaller prey when necessary, their hunting techniques are most effective against large, slow-moving herbivores whose size and defensive strategies make them unsuitable targets for smaller predators. The energy investment required for a successful hunt using saber-toothed techniques is substantial, making it crucial that each hunting effort target prey that will provide adequate nutritional return. The patience that characterizes saber-toothed hunting becomes apparent as our predator settles into a position that provides good visibility across a section of grassland where several large herbivores have been grazing throughout the day. Her amber eyes scan the landscape with the focused intensity of a creature that understands the importance of selecting exactly the right target and waiting for exactly the right opportunity. The hunting grounds that surround her position represent optimal habitat for the specialized techniques that saber-toothed cats have perfected. The mix of open grassland and scatter vegetation provides opportunities for concealed approach routes, while offering clear sight lines for target selection and assessment. The gently rolling topography creates natural blinds and approach corridors that can be used to get within striking distance of even the most alert prey animals. The social aspects of saber-toothed hunting reveal themselves as soft contact calls echo across the landscape, indicating the presence of other pack members positioned at strategic locations throughout the hunting area. While not all species of saber-toothed cats were social hunters, this particular group has evolved cooperative hunting strategies that allow them to take on prey animals that would be too dangerous or difficult for individual predators to handle successfully. The coordination required for successful pack hunting among saber-toothed cats represents one of the most sophisticated predatory behaviors ever to evolve. Pack members must be able to communicate silently across considerable distances, coordinating their movements to create the complex tactical situations that make their hunting techniques most effective. The timing required for these coordinated hunts is measured in seconds, with each pack member required to execute their role with perfect precision at exactly the predetermined moment. The learning process that produces such sophisticated hunting behaviors begins in cubhood and continues throughout the extended adolescent period that characterizes saber-toothed development. Young cats spend years observing and gradually participating in hunting activities, slowly acquiring the complex skills and tactical knowledge that will make them effective predators as adults. The extended learning period reflects both the complexity of their hunting techniques and the high stakes involved in predatory activities, where mistakes can result in serious injury or death. The energy management strategies that these predators employ reflect their need to balance the high energy costs of their hunting lifestyle with the irregular and unpredictable nature of hunting success. Between hunting efforts, saber-toothed cats spend long periods in energy-conserving rest, allowing their bodies to recover from the intense physical demands of their specialized hunting techniques while maintaining readiness for the next hunting opportunity. The digestive adaptations that support the saber-toothed hunting lifestyle include an enhanced ability to process large quantities of meat quickly and efficiently, allowing these predators to take maximum advantage of successful hunts while minimizing the time spent in the vulnerable feeding position. Their digestive systems can handle feast or famine cycles that would challenge less specialized predators, processing enormous meals when prey is available while maintaining metabolic efficiency during leaner periods. The thermoregulatory challenges faced by these large predators in the variable climate of the Pleistocene required sophisticated behavioral and physiological adaptations. Their hunting activities are timed to take advantage of optimal temperature conditions, while their resting behaviors include careful selection of microhabitats that provide appropriate thermal conditions for efficient recovery and energy conservation. The injury prevention strategies that saber-toothed cats have evolved reflect the high-risk nature of their hunting techniques and the catastrophic consequences that injuries could have for predators who depend on precise physical coordination for survival. Their hunting behaviors include extensive risk assessment and careful target selection designed to minimize the probability of dangerous defensive responses from prey animals. The seasonal variations in hunting behavior reflect changes in prey availability and condition throughout the year, with hunting intensity and target selection varying according to the migration patterns and reproductive cycles of prey species. During calving seasons, when young animals provide particularly vulnerable targets, saber-toothed cats may adjust their hunting strategies to take advantage of these opportunities while avoiding the dangerous defensive responses of protective parents. As the evening continues to deepen and our magnificent predator maintains her patient vigil, the intricate details of her hunting strategy continue to unfold with the precision of a biological clock that has been calibrated through millions of years of evolutionary refinement. Every aspect of her behavior, from the positioning of her massive body to the timing of her breathing, reflects the specialized adaptations that have made her species the most formidable predators of their time. The vast expanse of Pleistocene grassland that stretches endlessly in every direction from our vantage point represents far more than simply an open landscape dotted with grass and occasional trees. This is a complex, interconnected ecosystem of extraordinary richness and diversity, a biological kingdom that supports an abundance of life forms that rivals the great tropical rainforests in its productivity and complexity. As the golden evening light continues to bathe this ancient world in warm, amber tones, we begin to appreciate the intricate relationships and delicate balances that have allowed this grassland empire to flourish for millions of years. The foundation of this remarkable ecosystem lies in the grass itself, but not the simple, uniform grasslands that modern agriculture has made familiar to us. These Pleistocene prairies are composed of dozens of different grass species, each with its own specialized adaptations and ecological niche, creating a living carpet of extraordinary complexity and resilience. Tall prairie grasses wave their seed heads 3 meters above the ground, their deep root systems extending even further downward to tap into groundwater resources and nutrients stored in the rich soil layers that have accumulated over millennia. Between these towering grass species, shorter varieties fill every available ecological niche, creating multiple layers of vegetation that provide habitat and resources for countless species of animals. Some grasses specialize in early spring growth, taking advantage of cool, moist conditions and abundant sunlight before the taller species can shade them out. Others have evolved to thrive in the heat of summer, when their deeper root systems and specialized metabolisms allow them to continue photosynthesis even during the driest periods. The soil beneath this grassland paradise tells a story of incredible fertility and biological activity that spans thousands of years of ecological development. The organic matter content of these ancient soils exceeds anything found in modern agricultural areas, with layer upon layer of decomposed plant material creating a rich, dark earth that can support the enormous productivity visible above ground. The soil ecosystem itself teems with life. Bacteria, fungi, earthworms, and countless other decomposer organisms that break down organic matter and recycle nutrients with remarkable efficiency. The water cycle that sustains this grassland kingdom operates with the precision of a vast, natural irrigation system. The dense network of grass roots creates millions of tiny channels through the soil, allowing rainwater to penetrate deep into the earth rather than running off across the surface. This stored water is then released gradually throughout the growing season, maintaining soil moisture levels that support continuous plant growth even during relatively dry periods. The seasonal rhythms that govern this ecosystem create a spectacular cycle of renewal and abundance that repeats year after year with subtle variations based on climate patterns and random events. Spring arrival transforms the landscape almost overnight, as warming temperatures trigger the emergence of countless wildflowers that paint the grassland in brilliant colors. Purple lupins, yellow sunflowers, and white prairie roses create a natural garden of extraordinary beauty and diversity, each species timed to bloom when its preferred pollinators are most active. The insect life that thrives in this grassland environment displays diversity and abundance that would astound modern observers accustomed to the simplified ecosystems of agricultural landscapes. Millions of beetles, butterflies, bees, and other arthropods go about their daily activities in every layer of the grassland community, from the soil-dwelling species that process organic matter to the aerial forms that move pollen and seeds across vast distances. The complex relationships between these insects and the plants they depend upon represent millions of years of coevolutionary refinement, creating partnerships of extraordinary precision and mutual benefit. The small mammal communities that inhabit this grassland kingdom have evolved into a remarkable array of specialized forms, each adapted to exploit particular resources and ecological opportunities within the complex grassland environment. Prairie dogs create extensive burrow systems that honeycomb the soil beneath large areas of grassland, their underground cities providing shelter for hundreds of individuals, while their grazing activities help maintain optimal grass growth patterns. Ground squirrels, mice, and voles occupy different ecological niches within the grassland community, some specializing in seed collection, others in green vegetation, and still others in the insects and other small animals that share their habitat. The burrow systems created by these small mammals serve functions that extend far beyond simple shelter, creating a three-dimensional habitat that supports countless other species and plays crucial roles in grassland ecosystem function. These underground networks improve soil aeration and water infiltration while providing shelter for reptiles, amphibians, and invertebrates that could not otherwise survive in the open grassland environment. The excavated soil from burrow construction creates microhabitats with different moisture and nutrient conditions that support specialized plant communities and add to the overall diversity of the grassland ecosystem. The bird life that inhabits this Pleistocene grassland represents an extraordinary experiment in ecological specialization, with species evolved to exploit every available resource and habitat opportunity within the grassland environment. Ground nesting species have developed elaborate camouflage strategies and behavioral adaptations that allow them to successfully raise their young despite the constant threat of predation. Aerial species have evolved to take advantage of the rich insect life and abundant seeds that the grassland provides, while their nesting requirements are met by the scattered trees and shrubs that the landscape. The large herbivores that are the most visible inhabitants of this grassland kingdom represent some of the most spectacular creatures ever to walk the earth. Massive ground sloths, some weighing several tons, move slowly through the grassland like living boulders, their enormous claws perfectly adapted for stripping vegetation and digging for roots and tubers. These gentle giants play crucial ecological roles, creating disturbances in the vegetation that prevent any single plant species from dominating large areas, while their massive digestive systems help distribute seeds across the landscape. The herds of ancient horses that thunder across these plains in groups, numbering in the hundreds, represent an evolutionary experiment in grassland living that has been remarkably successful for millions of years. These animals are larger and more robust than their modern descendants, with powerful bodies and specialized teeth that allow them to process the tough grasses that form the majority of their diet. Their social behaviors have evolved to take advantage of the protection that large herds provide while minimizing competition for resources within the group. Massive bison ancestors, some standing nearly 2 meters at the shoulder and weighing over a ton, move across the grassland in herds that stretch from horizon to horizon during their seasonal migrations. These enormous herbivores serve as living lawn mowers, their grazing activities maintaining the grassland in optimal condition while their migrations distribute nutrients across vast areas and prevent overgrazing in any single location. The impact of their hooves creates microhabitats for smaller plants and animals, while their wallowing behavior creates temporary wetlands that support specialized communities of plants and animals. The ancient camels that browse on shrubs and trees at the edges of grassland areas represent another successful adaptation to the challenges and opportunities of Pleistocene grassland living. These creatures, larger and more robust than their modern counterparts, have evolved efficient digestive systems that allow them to extract maximum nutrition from low-quality browse, while their water conservation abilities permit them to thrive in areas where seasonal droughts make survival challenging for other large mammals. The predator-prey relationships that structure this grassland community create a complex web of ecological interactions that maintains the balance and diversity of the entire ecosystem. The presence of large predators like our magnificent saber-toothed cats influences the behavior and distribution of herbivore populations, preventing overgrazing in preferred areas while ensuring that plant communities have opportunities to recover from grazing pressure. The constant vigilance required for survival in the presence of such formidable predators has driven the evolution of sophisticated warning systems and defensive behaviors among prey species. The scavenger guild that operates within this grassland ecosystem includes a remarkable array of species adapted to take advantage of the carcasses left by large predators and the natural mortality that occurs in any large animal population. Massive condors and other scavenging birds patrol the skies with 7-meter wingspans, their keen eyesight allowing them to spot carrion from enormous distances. These aerial scavengers work in conjunction with terrestrial scavengers to ensure that no organic matter is wasted, recycling nutrients back into the ecosystem with remarkable efficiency. The plant communities that form the foundation of this grassland kingdom demonstrate remarkable resilience and adaptability in response to the various disturbances and environmental changes that characterize the dynamic Pleistocene climate. The grassland can recover from fires, droughts, and heavy grazing with astonishing speed, thanks to the extensive root systems and energy storage organs that allow plants to regrow rapidly when favorable conditions return. This resilience has allowed grassland ecosystems to persist and thrive despite the dramatic climate fluctuations that have characterized the Pleistocene epoch. The fire ecology that shapes these grasslands operates on cycles that span decades, with natural fires started by lightning helping to maintain the grassland ecosystem by preventing the encroachment of woody plants and recycling nutrients stored in accumulated dead vegetation. The grass species that dominate these communities have evolved sophisticated adaptations that not only allow them to survive fires, but actually benefit from the periodic burning that clears away competing vegetation and stimulates new growth. The nutrient cycling processes that maintain the fertility of this grassland ecosystem operate with remarkable efficiency, creating closed loops that conserve essential elements while supporting enormous biological productivity. The deep-root systems of grassland plants move nutrients from lower soil layers to the surface, where they become available to other plants when the roots decompose. Large herbivores serve as mobile nutrient pumps, concentrating nutrients from large grazing areas into smaller spaces through their digestive processes and waste deposition. The hydrology of this grassland kingdom creates a complex network of seasonal wetlands, permanent streams, and underground water flows that support the enormous water requirements of the large animal populations that call this ecosystem home. Prairie potholes, created by irregular topography and impermeable soil layers, fill with water during wet seasons and provide crucial habitat for waterfowl and aquatic plants, while serving as water sources for terrestrial animals during dry periods. The microclimate variations that exist within this seemingly uniform grassland create a mosaic of different growing conditions that support remarkable plant and animal diversity within relatively small areas. South-facing slopes may be several degrees warmer than north-facing slopes, creating opportunities for different plant communities and extending the growing season for cold-sensitive species. Low-lying areas collect moisture and nutrients, creating lush conditions that support different vegetation assemblages and provide refugia during drought periods. The phenological patterns that coordinate the activities of different species within this grassland ecosystem demonstrate remarkable precision and complexity, with flowering times, migration schedules, and reproductive cycles synchronized to take advantage of optimal conditions and resource availability. The timing of these biological events is coordinated by environmental cues such as day length, temperature patterns, and moisture availability, creating a natural calendar that ensures ecosystem functions are performed at the most appropriate times. The carbon storage capacity of this grassland ecosystem represents one of its most important global functions, with the extensive root systems and rich soils sequestering enormous quantities of atmospheric carbon dioxide. The stable soil organic matter that accumulates in grassland ecosystems represents one of the most effective natural carbon storage systems on Earth, helping to regulate global climate patterns through the biological processes that govern carbon cycling. As evening continues to deepen across this magnificent grassland kingdom, the intricate relationships and delicate balances that sustain this ecosystem become even more apparent, creating a sense of profound interconnectedness that speaks to the remarkable evolutionary achievements that have produced this biological masterpiece. In a secluded grove of ancient willows, approximately 3 kilometers from where our magnificent female saber-toothed cat maintains her hunting vigil, the gentler aspects of these remarkable predators' lives unfold with touching tenderness and complexity. Here, sheltered by drooping branches that create a natural nursery hidden from the view of potential threats, 3 young saber-toothed cubs engage in the playful activities that will shape their development into the sophisticated predators their species requires them to become. The air temperature in this protected microhabitat remains comfortably warm at 24 degrees Celsius, while the soft earth beneath the willow canopy provides an ideal surface for the tumbling, wrestling, and exploratory behaviors that characterize young predator development. The cubs, now approximately 8 months old, display the endearing combination of predatory potential and youthful awkwardness that makes young animals so compelling to observe. Their saber teeth have begun to emerge, but remain small compared to their eventual adult proportions, creating an almost comical contrast with their oversized paws and the powerful musculature that is already beginning to develop in their shoulders and forequarters. Their coats retain the spotted pattern of youth, providing camouflage that will fade as they mature into the solid tawny coloration of adult saber-toothed cats. The social structure that governs this small family group reflects millions of years of evolutionary refinement in cooperative child-rearing strategies. Unlike modern big cats, which typically raise their young in relative isolation, saber-toothed cats have evolved complex social systems that provide multiple levels of protection and instruction for their developing offspring. The cubs are attended not only by their biological mother, but also by their aunt, a younger female who has not yet established her own territory, and occasionally by their father, a massive male whose territory encompasses the hunting grounds of several related females. The den site itself represents a masterpiece of strategic location selection, chosen to provide optimal conditions for raising vulnerable young, while maintaining access to the hunting territories that the adults require to secure adequate nutrition for their growing family. The grove is positioned near a reliable water source, offers multiple escape routes in case of danger, and provides the concealment necessary to keep the cubs hidden from potential threats during their most vulnerable developmental period. The play behaviors that occupy much of the cubs' daylight hours serve crucial functions in developing the complex motor skills and social relationships that will be essential for their survival as adult predators. Their wrestling matches, while appearing purely recreational, actually serve to strengthen the muscular systems that will eventually allow them to grapple with large prey animals, while also establishing the dominance relationships that will govern their interactions throughout their lives. The hunting instruction that begins during cubhood represents one of the most sophisticated educational processes in the animal kingdom, with adult cats gradually introducing their offspring to increasingly complex predatory skills through carefully orchestrated learning experiences. The process begins with simple stalking games, where cubs practice the silent movement and patient positioning that form the foundation of saber-toothed hunting techniques. The mother's approach to teaching demonstrates remarkable patience and pedagogical sophistication, as she adjusts her instruction methods to match the developmental stage and individual learning style of each cub. The lessons progress from basic movement skills to more complex activities such as scent discrimination, prey assessment, and the timing and coordination required for successful pack hunting strategies. The vocalizations that maintain family cohesion represent a complex communication system that includes dozens of different calls, each with specific meanings and appropriate context for use. The soft contact calls that pass between family members serve to maintain awareness of each individual's location and emotional state, while more urgent vocalizations can summon help or coordinate responses to potential threats. The grooming behaviors that strengthen social bonds within the family group involve elaborate mutual care routines that serve both hygienic and emotional functions. The mother spends hours each day grooming her cubs, using her rough tongue to maintain their coat condition, while the physical contact reinforces the emotional attachments that bind the family together. The cubs also groom each other, establishing and maintaining the sibling relationships that may persist throughout their lives. The feeding arrangements that ensure adequate nutrition for all family members demonstrate sophisticated resource sharing strategies that balance individual needs with group welfare. When successful hunts provide large carcasses, the family feeding hierarchy ensures that the cubs receive priority access to the most nutritious portions, while adults share the remaining meat according to their contributions to the hunt and their current energy requirements. The territorial defense that protects family groups from outside threats involves coordinated vigilance and response strategies that utilize the combined capabilities of all adult pack members. The father's massive size and formidable fighting ability provide the ultimate deterrent against incursions by rival predators, while the female's speed and agility allow for rapid response to more subtle threats. The seasonal variations in family life reflect the changing energy demands and environmental challenges that characterize the Pleistocene climate cycles. During abundant summer months, when prey is plentiful and weather conditions are favorable, families can afford to spend extended periods in play and instruction activities that would be impossible during the more challenging winter season. The extended childhood that characterizes saber-toothed development reflects the complexity of the skills and social relationships that these predators must master before achieving independence. Cubs may remain with their family groups for up to 2 years, gradually assuming greater responsibilities in hunting activities while continuing to benefit from the protection and instruction that their elders provide. The reproductive strategies that govern saber-toothed family formation involve complex courtship behaviors and mate selection criteria that ensure optimal genetic combinations for producing successful offspring. The massive males that dominate territories containing multiple females must demonstrate not only their fighting ability and hunting prowess, but also their capacity for the gentle interactions with cubs that characterize good fathers in this species. The denning behaviors that provide security for developing cubs involve sophisticated site selection and modification activities that create optimal microclimates for young animal development. Adult cats may spend weeks preparing den sites, clearing vegetation, creating drainage systems, and establishing the multiple entrance and exit routes that could prove crucial during emergency situations. The learning processes that shape cub development extend far beyond simple imitation of adult behaviors, involving complex cognitive abilities that allow young cats to understand and internalize the strategic thinking that underlies successful predation. Cubs must learn to assess prey animals, evaluate hunting opportunities, and coordinate their actions with other pack members in ways that require genuine understanding rather than simple behavioral mimicry. The emotional bonds that unite saber-toothed families demonstrate remarkable depth and persistence, with family members showing clear signs of grief when separated from their relatives and joy when reunited after periods of separation. These emotional capacities reflect the sophisticated neural development that supports the complex social behaviors essential for successful pack living. The conflict resolution mechanisms that maintain harmony within family groups involve elaborate behavioral displays and submission rituals that allow dominance relationships to be established and maintained without the dangerous physical confrontations that could injure family members. These social skills are learned gradually through observation and practice, with cubs receiving gentle correction when their behavior exceeds acceptable bounds. The protection strategies that shield cubs from the numerous dangers present in their Pleistocene environment involve constant vigilance and rapid response capabilities that require all adult family members to maintain heightened alertness whenever cubs are present. The positioning of family members during vulnerable activities, such as feeding or drinking, follows strict protocols designed to ensure maximum protection for the most vulnerable individuals. The migration patterns that some saber-toothed families follow in response to seasonal changes in prey availability require sophisticated navigation abilities and social coordination that allows large groups to move efficiently across vast distances while maintaining family cohesion. These movements may cover hundreds of kilometers and require detailed knowledge of terrain, water sources, and potential dangers along migration routes. The cultural transmission that passes behavioral innovations from one generation to the next ensures that successful hunting techniques and survival strategies accumulate within family lineages over many generations. Cubs that learn particularly effective hunting methods from their parents may in turn pass these innovations onto their own offspring, creating cultural traditions that enhance survival success within specific family lines. The cooperative breeding behaviors that characterize some saber-toothed populations involve non-reproductive adults assisting with cub care in ways that increase the survival success of their relatives' offspring. These helpers gain valuable experience in child rearing while contributing to the genetic success of their family line through the survival of related cubs. The coming-of-age rituals that mark the transition from cubhood to adult status involve gradually increasing participation in hunting activities and territorial defense, with young cats earning their place in the adult hierarchy through demonstrated competence in the skills essential for successful pack membership. This transition period may last several months, during which time young cats gradually assume adult responsibilities while retaining some of the social protections afforded to juveniles. The dispersal behaviors that eventually lead young cats to establish their own territories involve complex decisions about when to leave the natal family group and how to locate suitable areas for territory establishment. Young cats must balance the security of remaining with their families against the reproductive opportunities that come with establishing independent territories. The reunion behaviors that occur when family members encounter each other after periods of separation demonstrate the persistent nature of saber-toothed social bonds, with elaborate greeting ceremonies that reinforce relationships and exchange information about individual experiences during the separation period. These reunions may involve extended periods of mutual grooming, play, and vocal communication that serve to re-establish the social connections essential for continued cooperation. As the evening light continues to fade and the young cubs settle into their evening rest under the protective watch of their vigilant mother, the tender scene in the willow grove provides a touching reminder that even the most formidable predators in Earth's history began their lives as vulnerable infants dependent upon the love and protection of devoted families. As the last traces of golden sunlight fade from the western horizon and the ancient stars begin to emerge in the deepening blue of the Pleistocene sky, a subtle but profound transformation begins to ripple across the vast grassland empire that stretches endlessly in every direction. This transformation speaks not of daily rhythms or seasonal changes, but of something far grander and more momentous. The beginning of one of nature's most spectacular phenomena, a migration that will involve millions of animals and reshape the very character of the landscape across thousands of kilometers of ancient terrain. The first signs of this impending movement are almost imperceptible to casual observation, consisting of subtle changes in the behavior and positioning of the great herbivore herds that have been peacefully grazing across these grasslands throughout the summer months. The massive bison ancestors, some standing nearly 2 meters at the shoulder, begin to show a restlessness that manifests itself in more frequent lifting of their great heads to scan the horizon, longer periods of standing alertly between feeding sessions, and a gradual but unmistakable shift in the orientation of their bodies toward the south. This restlessness reflects the activation of ancient migratory instincts that have been refined through millions of years of evolutionary adaptation to the rhythmic climate changes that characterize the Pleistocene epoch. Deep within the neural circuits of these magnificent creatures, genetic programs shaped by countless generations of successful migration are responding to environmental cues that include not only the changing angle of sunlight and the gradual cooling of nighttime temperatures, but also more subtle signals such as variations in atmospheric pressure, electromagnetic field fluctuations, and chemical changes in the vegetation that indicate the approaching transition from the abundant summer season to the more challenging conditions that lie ahead. The herds of ancient horses that have been scattered across hundreds of square kilometers of prime, grazing territory begin to demonstrate their own preparations for the epic journey that awaits them. These robust creatures, larger and more powerfully built than their modern descendants, possess the stamina and strength necessary to cover the vast distances that their migration will require, while their sophisticated social organization provides the coordination necessary to keep thousands of individuals moving together across a landscape that offers both opportunities and dangers. The communication systems that coordinate these massive movements represent some of the most sophisticated acoustic phenomena in the natural world, as the low-frequency calls that carry across vast distances begin to create a network of information exchange that will ultimately synchronize the activities of millions of animals across thousands of square kilometers. The deep rumbles that emerge from the throats of the great bison can travel for dozens of kilometers, carrying encoded information about weather conditions, resource availability, and the timing of movement decisions that individual animals use to coordinate their own behavioral responses. Our magnificent saber-toothed cats, those supreme predators who have dominated these grasslands throughout the abundant summer months, now face the greatest challenge and opportunity of their annual cycle. The massive migrations that are beginning to stir around them represent both the loss of their established hunting territories and the potential for unprecedented hunting opportunities along the migration routes. The decision of whether to follow the great herds or to remain in their traditional territories requires sophisticated assessment of risks and benefits that reflects the remarkable cognitive abilities that have evolved in these apex predators. The female saber-tooth, who has been maintaining her hunting vigil throughout the evening, now begins to demonstrate subtle changes in behavior that indicate her awareness of the momentous events beginning to unfold around her. Her massive head turns more frequently toward the south, where the subtle sounds and scents carried on the evening breeze speak of the gathering excitement and preparation that characterizes the pre-migration period. Her amber eyes reflect an intelligence capable of processing the complex environmental information that will guide her decision about whether to embark upon the epic journey that lies ahead. The family groups of saber-toothed cats face particularly complex decisions during migration periods, as the challenges and opportunities of long-distance travel must be weighed against the vulnerability of cubs who may not yet possess the strength and endurance necessary for successful migration. The cubs we observed earlier in their protected willow grove represent investments of enormous energy and time that their parents cannot afford to risk lightly. Yet the potential benefits of following the great herds may outweigh even these precious considerations. The pack coordination that will be essential for successful migration hunting requires levels of cooperation and communication that push saber-toothed social behaviors to their most sophisticated extremes. Pack members who have been operating within relatively stable territorial boundaries throughout the summer must now adapt to the dynamic environment of migration hunting, where opportunities arise and disappear rapidly, and where the coordination of pack activities must accommodate the constantly changing positions and behaviors of both predators and prey. The ancient elephants that represent some of the most impressive creatures in this Pleistocene menagerie begin their own migration preparations with the deliberate care that characterizes all activities of these intelligent giants. Their movements will set the pace for much of the migration, as their need for enormous quantities of food and water creates constraints that influence the timing and routing of the entire migration phenomenon. The matriarchal leadership that governs elephant social organization brings decades of migration experience to bear on the crucial decisions about timing, routing, and pacing that will determine the success of the epic journey ahead. The ground sloths, those massive, gentle creatures whose slow movements belie their remarkable success in the Pleistocene world, face unique challenges during migration periods. Their specialized digestive systems and energy-efficient lifestyle are perfectly adapted to the consistent resources of stable territories, making migration a costly and risky proposition that must be carefully balanced against the benefits of following their preferred food sources to more favorable climates. The smaller herbivores that form such an important part of the grassland ecosystem demonstrate their own adaptive responses to the approaching migration season, with many species timing their reproductive cycles to ensure that young animals will be strong enough to participate in the migration when the time comes. The complex calculations involved in these timing decisions reflect sophisticated understanding of seasonal patterns and migration requirements that has been refined through countless generations of natural selection. The scavenger species that depend upon the carcasses left by large predators face their own opportunities and challenges during migration periods. The increased mortality that inevitably accompanies long-distance movements of large animal populations creates unprecedented feeding opportunities for scavengers, while the constant movement of the herds requires these opportunistic species to develop their own migration strategies to maintain access to their food sources. The impact of millions of migrating animals upon the landscape creates temporary but dramatic changes in the grassland ecosystem, as the concentrated grazing pressure and trampling effects of massive herds can transform the vegetation patterns across vast areas in a matter of days. These disturbances play crucial roles in maintaining grassland health by preventing the accumulation of dead plant material and creating the complex mosaic of different vegetation stages that supports maximum biodiversity. The navigation systems that guide migrating animals across thousands of kilometers of unfamiliar territory represent one of the most remarkable achievements in animal behavior, involving complex integration of celestial cues, magnetic field information, landmark recognition, and inherited knowledge that allows animals to successfully complete journeys that would challenge even modern technology. The accuracy of these biological navigation systems enables animals to return to specific locations with precision that exceeds what would be expected from random movement by enormous margins. The energy management strategies that allow large animals to complete epic migrations require sophisticated behavioral and physiological adaptations that optimize the balance between energy expenditure during travel and energy acquisition through feeding opportunities along migration routes. The ability to store fat reserves during abundant periods and to utilize these stores efficiently during the demands of migration represents a crucial adaptation that separates successful migrants from those species that remain bound to local territories. The predator-prey dynamics that operate during migration periods create some of the most complex and intense ecological interactions in the natural world, as the concentration of enormous numbers of animals in relatively narrow corridors creates unprecedented opportunities for predation while also providing the protection that comes from the confusion and distraction effects of massive herds. The hunting strategies that predators employ during migrations often differ dramatically from their typical territorial hunting behaviors, requiring behavioral flexibility and learning abilities that reflect remarkable cognitive sophistication. The weather patterns that influence migration timing and success operate on scales that encompass entire continents, as the global climate systems that drive seasonal changes create the environmental pressures that make migration necessary, while also determining the optimal timing and routing for successful completion of these epic journeys. The ability of animals to interpret and respond appropriately to these large-scale environmental signals represents an extraordinary achievement in evolutionary adaptation to the challenges of life on a dynamic planet. The river crossings that represent some of the most dangerous and dramatic episodes of migration require sophisticated assessment of water conditions, predator threats, and group coordination that pushes animal decision-making abilities to their limits. The success of these crossings often determines the fate of entire populations, making them crucial bottlenecks that have shaped the evolution of migration behaviors throughout the Pleistocene epoch. The disease dynamics that operate within migrating populations create complex selective pressures that influence everything from immune system evolution to social behavior patterns, as the close contact and stress associated with migration can facilitate disease transmission while also providing opportunities for the development of population-level immunity to endemic pathogens. The cultural transmission of migration knowledge from experienced individuals to naive migrants represents one of the most important educational processes in animal societies, as the success of migration attempts often depends upon the accumulated wisdom of individuals who have completed the journey successfully in previous years. This knowledge transfer process ensures that migration traditions persist across generations while also allowing for the gradual refinement and improvement of migration strategies in response to changing environmental conditions. The timing synchronization that coordinates the activities of millions of animals across vast geographic areas requires communication systems and social coordination mechanisms that operate on scales unprecedented in modern ecosystems. The acoustic, chemical, and visual signals that maintain this coordination create a web of information exchange that effectively links individual animals into a single, vast superorganism capable of making collective decisions that no individual could accomplish alone. As the evening deepens into night and the first stars provide their ancient guidance to the creatures preparing for their epic journey, the grassland empire begins to transform from a stable, territorial ecosystem into something far more dynamic and dramatic. A staging area for one of the greatest spectacles in natural history, where millions of animals will soon begin the journey that has shaped their evolution and defined their existence for countless generations. The eternal dance of seasons that governs life in this Pleistocene world operates according to rhythms that are both familiar and fundamentally different from the seasonal patterns that characterize our modern climate. As autumn begins to deepen across the vast grassland empire, the subtle but inexorable changes in day length, temperature, and atmospheric conditions trigger responses throughout the ecosystem that have been refined by millions of years of evolutionary adaptation to the unique challenges and opportunities that each season brings. The temperature patterns that define this Pleistocene autumn create optimal conditions for the massive biological processes that must be completed before winter's more challenging conditions arrive. Daytime temperatures settle into a comfortable range around 18 degrees Celsius, warm enough to support active metabolism and continued plant growth, yet cool enough to trigger the physiological changes that prepare both plants and animals for the dormant period ahead. The nighttime cooling that drops temperatures to near 10 degrees provides a thermal stimulus that many species require to initiate their winter preparation behaviors. The gradual shortening of daylight hours creates one of the most important environmental signals that coordinates seasonal behaviors throughout the ecosystem. The changing photoperiod triggers hormonal cascades in animals that regulate everything from reproductive cycles to fat storage behaviors, while plants respond to the diminishing light by beginning their own preparations for winter dormancy. This ancient timing system ensures that all components of the ecosystem remain synchronized despite the enormous diversity of species and ecological strategies represented in this grassland community. The plant communities that form the foundation of this ecosystem demonstrate remarkable sophistication in their seasonal adaptations, with different species timing their reproductive and storage activities to take maximum advantage of autumn conditions while ensuring their survival through the challenging winter months. The tall prairie grasses that dominate the landscape begin to transfer the energy stored in their leaves down into their extensive root systems, creating underground reserves that will sustain them through months of frozen dormancy. The seed production that reaches its peak during autumn represents one of nature's most impressive displays of reproductive abundance, as millions of grass plants simultaneously release their genetic legacy into the autumn winds. The timing of this seed dispersal is precisely calibrated to environmental conditions, with seeds released when wind patterns and moisture levels provide optimal opportunities for successful establishment in new locations. The quantity of seeds produced during a successful autumn can number in the billions per square kilometer, creating a vast genetic reservoir that ensures the continuation of grassland communities despite the inevitable losses that winter will bring. The nut and fruit production of the scattered trees that the grassland landscape creates crucial resources for the animal communities that must accumulate fat reserves to survive the winter months ahead. Ancient oaks produce acorns in quantities that can carpet the ground beneath their spreading canopies, while primitive apple and cherry trees offer fruit that provides essential carbohydrates and vitamins for animals preparing for winter's nutritional challenges. The insect communities that have thrived throughout the warm summer months now face the approaching crisis of winter survival. triggering remarkable adaptations that allow these small creatures to persist through conditions that would otherwise prove fatal. Some species begin the process of entering diapause, a form of suspended animation that allows them to survive months of freezing temperatures with minimal metabolic activity. Others concentrate their efforts on producing cold-resistant eggs or larvae that will emerge when favorable conditions return with spring's arrival. The butterfly migrations that characterize autumn in this Pleistocene world represent some of the most remarkable navigational achievements in the animal kingdom, as delicate creatures weighing less than a gram successfully complete journeys that span thousands of kilometers. These migrations require precise timing to take advantage of favorable weather conditions while avoiding the worst effects of approaching winter storms. The butterflies that participate in these epic journeys possess navigational abilities that rival those of much larger animals. Using a combination of solar compass navigation, magnetic field detection, and inherited migratory programs to guide their journey to distant wintering grounds. The large herbivores that have dominated the summer grasslands now enter their most crucial period of preparation, as the fat reserves they accumulate during autumn will determine their chances of surviving the harsh conditions that winter will bring. The massive bison ancestors increase their feeding intensity dramatically, spending up to 16 hours per day in concentrated grazing activities that allow them to build the energy stores essential for winter survival. Their digestive systems operate at peak efficiency during this period, extracting maximum nutrition from the abundant plant material while it remains available. The ancient horses that have spent summer in small family groups begin to aggregate into larger herds that provide enhanced protection against predators, while also facilitating the sharing of information about optimal feeding locations and winter shelter sites. These social aggregations represent a fundamental shift from the territorial behaviors that characterize summer activities to the cooperative strategies that enhance survival during the more challenging seasons. The ground sloths, those remarkable giants whose slow-motion lifestyle has proven so successful in the Pleistocene world, demonstrate their own unique adaptations to seasonal change through dramatic increases in feeding activities that allow them to build the massive fat reserves their winter survival strategy requires. Their specialized digestive systems, which can extract nutrition from vegetation that other animals cannot process, provide crucial advantages during autumn when food quality begins to decline and quantity becomes increasingly important. The small mammal communities that form such an important part of grassland ecosystems demonstrate remarkable diversity in their autumn preparation strategies, with different species employing tactics ranging from intensive food storage to dramatic physiological changes that enhance cold tolerance. Prairie dogs work frantically to expand and weatherproof their burrow systems while accumulating the food stores that will sustain their colonies through winter's challenges. Ground squirrels enter hyperphagia, a period of intense feeding that can double their body weight in preparation for the extended hibernation that will carry them through the coldest months. The predator communities that have enjoyed abundant hunting opportunities throughout the summer now face their own seasonal challenges as prey animals become more vigilant and defensive, while also beginning to aggregate into larger groups that provide enhanced protection. Our magnificent saber-toothed cats must adapt their hunting strategies to accommodate these changing conditions while also building their own fat reserves to sustain them through periods when hunting success may be limited by weather conditions and prey scarcity. The hunting success rates that predators achieve during autumn often determine their chances of surviving the winter months ahead, making this season crucial for predator populations. The increased vigilance and defensive behaviors of prey animals create more challenging hunting conditions, requiring predators to expend greater energy for each successful hunt, while also facing increased risks of injury during encounters with more desperate and aggressive prey. The territorial behaviors that have structured predator communities throughout the summer begin to break down during autumn as the advantages of maintaining exclusive territories are outweighed by the benefits of following migrating prey herds or concentrating hunting efforts in areas where prey animals aggregate for winter protection. This seasonal shift in territorial strategies requires considerable behavioral flexibility and often leads to increased competition between predators for access to optimal hunting areas. The scavenger communities that depend upon carcasses left by predators or natural mortality events face their own seasonal opportunities and challenges as autumn progresses. The increased mortality that often accompanies the stress of winter preparation creates enhanced feeding opportunities for scavengers, while the approaching winter conditions require these opportunistic species to develop their own strategies for surviving harsh weather and reduced food availability. The bird communities that have enriched the grassland ecosystem throughout the summer now begin their own seasonal transformations, with many species preparing for epic migrations that will carry them to more favorable climates, while others adapt to the challenges of remaining in the grassland throughout the winter months. The migrants must time their departure precisely to avoid early winter storms while ensuring they depart before food resources become too scarce to support their energy needs for the journey ahead. The waterfowl that have nested in the prairie potholes scattered throughout the grassland begin to aggregate in larger flocks that provide enhanced protection during their upcoming migrations. These birds face the challenge of building fat reserved for their journey, while also ensuring that their young have developed the flight capabilities necessary to complete the arduous trip to their wintering grounds. The seed-eating birds that will remain in the grassland throughout winter begin intensive feeding activities designed to take advantage of the abundant seed crop, while also developing the physiological adaptations that will allow them to survive on the limited food resources available during the harsh winter months. Their digestive systems undergo modifications that enhance their ability to process the high-energy seeds that will form the majority of their winter diet. The reptile and amphibian communities that have been active throughout the warm summer months now begin the remarkable transformations that will allow them to survive winter temperatures that would otherwise prove fatal to cold-blooded creatures. Many species begin seeking out hibernation sites that will provide protection from freezing temperatures, while others undergo physiological changes that enhance their cold tolerance through the production of natural antifreeze compounds. The soil ecosystem that supports all terrestrial life undergoes its own seasonal transformations as cooling temperatures slow microbial activity, while increasing the preservation of organic matter that will provide essential nutrients when biological activity resumes with spring's arrival. The freeze-thaw cycles that will characterize winter play crucial roles in soil development by breaking down organic matter and creating the soil structure that supports plant growth. The water cycle that sustains this ecosystem adapts to autumn conditions through changes in evaporation rates, precipitation patterns, and groundwater recharge that will determine water availability throughout the winter and into the following growing season. The autumn rains that often characterize this season provide crucial moisture for seed germination, while also recharging the groundwater reserves that many animals depend upon during winter months. The weather patterns that govern this Pleistocene climate create autumn conditions that are generally more stable and predictable than the dramatic storms and temperature extremes that will characterize winter and spring. This stability provides optimal conditions for the completion of seasonal preparation activities while allowing animals and plants to make the gradual adjustments necessary for successful adaptation to approaching winter conditions. The atmospheric conditions that influence animal behavior include subtle changes in barometric pressure, humidity levels, and air quality that provide environmental cues for timing seasonal behavioral changes. Many animals possess sensory capabilities that allow them to detect these atmospheric variations with remarkable precision, using this information to optimize the timing of migration, hibernation, and other critical survival behaviors. As autumn deepens and the first hints of winter begin to appear in the cooling nights and occasional morning frosts, the grassland ecosystem demonstrates the remarkable resilience and adaptability that has allowed it to thrive through millions of years of climatic change and seasonal variation, each component perfectly adapted to play its role in the grand seasonal symphony that governs life in this ancient world. In the gentle starlight that now illuminates this vast Pleistocene grassland, A remarkable drama of coexistence unfolds with the quiet dignity that characterizes one of nature's most sophisticated achievements in ecological balance. The countless species that call this ancient ecosystem home have evolved together over millions of years, creating a web of relationships so intricate and perfectly calibrated that each creature, from the mightiest saber-toothed predator to the smallest soil-dwelling invertebrate, plays an essential role in maintaining the harmony that allows this biological masterpiece to function with extraordinary efficiency and stability. The foundation of this remarkable coexistence lies in the principle of ecological partitioning, where each species has evolved to exploit specific resources and habitat niches in ways that minimize direct competition while maximizing the efficient utilization of available energy and materials. The various herbivorous species that share these grasslands demonstrate this principle beautifully, with each group specializing in different types of vegetation, feeding at different times of day, and utilizing different portions of the available habitat in ways that allow enormous numbers of animals to coexist peacefully in the same general area. The massive bison ancestors that dominate the visual landscape of these grasslands specialize in consuming the coarser grasses and fibrous vegetation that many other herbivores cannot digest efficiently. Their powerful jaws and specialized teeth allowing them to process tough plant material that would be impossible for smaller animals to utilize. Their grazing activities actually benefit many other species by removing the older, less nutritious vegetation and stimulating the growth of tender new shoots that provide preferred food sources for smaller herbivores. The ancient horses that share these grazing grounds demonstrate their own feeding specializations, preferring the shorter, more tender grasses that grow close to the ground, while their nimble lips and sharp incisors allow them to be much more selective in their feeding than the massive bison. This selectivity enables them to extract maximum nutrition from high-quality plant parts, while leaving the coarser material for species better equipped to process it. Their smaller size and greater mobility also allow them to exploit scattered patches of optimal habitat that would not provide sufficient resources for larger herbivores. The ground sloths that move slowly through this ecosystem represent yet another approach to herbivorous living, their massive claws and powerful limbs allowing them to access vegetation that is completely unavailable to other herbivores. They can strip bark from trees, dig up roots and tubers, and reach high branches that provide food sources completely separate from the ground-level resources that support most other herbivorous species. Their slow metabolism and efficient digestive systems allow them to extract nutrition from low-quality vegetation that other animals cannot utilize effectively. The smaller herbivores that populate this ecosystem demonstrate even more refined specializations, with different species of ground squirrels, prairie dogs, and other small mammals focusing on different types of seeds, roots, and green vegetation in ways that prevent direct competition while ensuring that virtually every available food resource is efficiently utilized by some member of the grassland community. The predator communities that hunt these abundant herbivorous populations demonstrate equally sophisticated partitioning strategies that allow multiple predatory species to coexist without destructive competition. Our magnificent saber-toothed cats specialize in hunting the largest and most dangerous prey animals. Their specialized anatomy and cooperative hunting strategies allowing them to successfully take down massive herbivores that would be impossible targets for smaller predators. The smaller predatory species that share this ecosystem focus their hunting efforts on different prey categories, with some specializing in small mammals, others targeting birds, and still others concentrating on reptiles and amphibians. This specialization allows multiple predatory species to operate in the same general area without competing directly for the same food sources, while their different hunting strategies and habitat preferences further reduce the potential for competitive conflict. The scavenging guild that operates within this ecosystem demonstrates perhaps the most remarkable example of resource partitioning, with different species specialized to exploit different stages of carcass decomposition and different anatomical parts of dead animals. Large scavenging birds typically arrive first at fresh carcasses, using their powerful beaks to open tough hides and access the most nutritious internal organs. Smaller scavenging species follow later, cleaning meat from bones and processing smaller fragments that the larger scavengers cannot utilize efficiently. The decomposer communities that complete the nutrient cycling process show equally intricate specializations, with different species of bacteria, fungi, and invertebrates focusing on different types of organic matter and different stages of the decomposition process. This specialization ensures that virtually all organic material is eventually recycled back into the ecosystem, maintaining the fertility and productivity that supports such abundant life. The temporal partitioning that characterizes activity patterns within this ecosystem provides another crucial mechanism for reducing competition and conflict between species with similar resource requirements. Many potential competitors are active at different times of day, with some species specializing in dawn and dusk feeding periods, others active during full daylight, and still others conducting their activities under cover of darkness. The nocturnal hunters that become active as evening deepens include not only some predatory mammals, but also various bird species that specialize in hunting under low light conditions. Their enhanced sensory capabilities allow them to exploit hunting opportunities that are unavailable to species dependent upon visual hunting techniques, while their nocturnal activity patterns reduce direct competition with daytime predators. The seasonal timing mechanisms that coordinate the activities of different species provide yet another dimension of coexistence, with various species timing their reproductive cycles, migration patterns, and intensive feeding periods to avoid peak competition periods while taking advantage of optimal resource availability. The staggered timing of these activities ensures that peak resource demands from different species do not coincide, reducing stress on the ecosystem while maximizing the efficiency of resource utilization. The spatial distribution patterns that characterize this grassland ecosystem reflect sophisticated behavioral adaptations that allow species with similar resource requirements to coexist by utilizing different portions of the available habitat. Some species prefer areas near water sources, while others thrive in drier upland areas. Some animals concentrate their activities in areas with dense vegetation cover, while others prefer more open terrain that provides better visibility for predator detection. The microhabitat specializations that allow multiple species to coexist in seemingly similar environments become apparent when the grassland ecosystem is examined at finer scales. Areas that appear uniform from a distance actually contain remarkable diversity in soil conditions, moisture levels, vegetation density, and other environmental factors that create distinct niches for different species. The ability of animals to detect and exploit these subtle habitat differences allows for much higher species diversity than would be possible in a truly uniform environment. The communication systems that facilitate peaceful coexistence between potentially competing species include various acoustic and chemical signals that help animals avoid direct confrontations while maintaining awareness of each other's presence and activities. Many species have evolved specific vocalizations that serve as announcement calls, alerting other animals to their presence and intentions in ways that reduce the likelihood of surprise encounters that could lead to conflict. The mutual benefit relationships that exist between many species in this ecosystem demonstrate how evolution can favor cooperation over competition when such relationships provide advantages to all participants. Some herbivorous species have evolved feeding partnerships, where one species disturbs vegetation in ways that benefit another species, while mixed species foraging groups provide enhanced predator detection capabilities that benefit all participants. The predator-prey relationships that might seem inherently adversarial actually contribute to ecosystem stability through complex feedback mechanisms that prevent any single species from becoming so abundant that it damages the resource base that supports the entire community. The presence of efficient predators keeps herbivore populations within sustainable limits, while the availability of abundant prey supports diverse predator communities that provide multiple checks and balances within the ecosystem. The disease and parasite communities that exist within this ecosystem play crucial roles in maintaining population balance and preventing any single species from becoming too abundant relative to its resource base. These biological control mechanisms operate continuously and automatically, adjusting population pressures in response to density-dependent factors that help maintain optimal population sizes for long-term ecosystem stability. The behavioral flexibility that many species demonstrate in response to changing conditions allows for dynamic adjustments in resource utilization patterns that maintain coexistence even when environmental conditions change or population densities fluctuate. Animals can modify their feeding behavior, activity patterns, and habitat use in response to competition pressure, ensuring that coexistence relationships remain stable across a wide range of environmental conditions. The learning abilities that characterize many of the animals in this ecosystem allow for the cultural transmission of coexistence behaviors from older to younger individuals, ensuring that successful strategies for peaceful coexistence are passed down through generations and refined over time. Young animals learn not only how to find food and avoid predators, but also how to interact appropriately with other species in ways that maintain the social stability of the ecosystem. The evolutionary processes that continue to operate within this ecosystem drive the ongoing refinement of coexistence mechanisms, with natural selection favoring individuals and populations that can coexist most efficiently while eliminating those whose competitive behaviors disrupt ecosystem stability. This ongoing evolutionary pressure ensures that coexistence relationships continue to improve over time, creating increasingly sophisticated and stable ecological communities. The energetic efficiency that results from effective coexistence allows this ecosystem to support far more biomass and species diversity than would be possible if competitive interactions dominated species relationships. The reduction in energy wasted on territorial conflicts and competitive activities allows more energy to be channeled into growth, reproduction, and other activities that contribute to ecosystem productivity and stability. The resilience that characterizes this grassland ecosystem results largely from the complex web of coexistence relationships that provide multiple pathways for energy flow and nutrient cycling. When environmental changes or disturbances affect some species, the diverse array of alternative species and relationships ensures that essential ecosystem functions continue to operate, preventing system collapse and facilitating recovery from disturbances. As the night deepens over this ancient grassland and the stars wheel overhead in their eternal patterns, the peaceful coexistence of countless species continues in the darkness, each animal going about its nocturnal activities in harmony with its neighbors, contributing to the grand symphony of ecological balance that has sustained this remarkable ecosystem through millions of years of environmental change and evolutionary adaptation. As we stand beneath the vast canopy of Pleistocene stars, witnessing the timeless rhythms of this ancient grassland ecosystem, we become aware of subtle but profound changes that are beginning to ripple through this stable world like gentle waves across a peaceful lake. These changes speak not of daily or seasonal cycles, but of something far more momentous and gradual. The great transformation that will ultimately reshape the entire character of life on Earth and bring this magnificent age of giants to its inevitable conclusion. The climate patterns that have sustained this grassland empire for millions of years are beginning to shift according to astronomical cycles that operate on scales so vast that they dwarf human comprehension. The eccentricity of Earth's orbit around the Sun, the tilt of the planet's axis, and the wobble of rotational motion combine in complex ways to influence the amount and distribution of solar energy reaching different parts of the planet's surface. These Milankovitch cycles, named after the Serbian mathematician who first described their effects, drive the ice age cycles that have characterized the Pleistocene epoch and are now beginning another phase in their eternal dance of climate change. The massive ice sheets that have waxed and waned across northern continents throughout the Pleistocene are entering a period of gradual but inexorable retreat, releasing enormous quantities of fresh water into the oceans and triggering changes in ocean circulation patterns that will influence climate conditions across the entire planet. The melting of these continental glaciers raises sea levels gradually but persistently, flooding coastal areas and creating new geographic configurations that will influence weather patterns for thousands of years to come. The atmospheric composition that has remained relatively stable throughout most of the Pleistocene is beginning to show subtle but significant changes as the great ice sheets retreat and expose vast areas of previously frozen ground. The thawing of permafrost releases stored carbon dioxide and methane into the atmosphere, creating feedback loops that accelerate warming trends and contribute to the complex web of interactions that drive global climate change. The temperature increases that result from these various factors are measured in fractions of degrees per century. Changes so gradual that they would be imperceptible to any individual animal during its lifetime, yet profound enough to trigger cascading effects throughout ecosystems that have evolved under different climatic conditions. The average temperatures that have supported this grassland ecosystem begin to shift toward warmer conditions that favor different types of vegetation and support different assemblages of animal life. The precipitation patterns that have sustained the grassland ecosystem begin to show subtle but important changes as global atmospheric circulation adjusts to new temperature and pressure gradients created by retreating ice sheets and changing ocean temperatures. Some areas that have enjoyed reliable seasonal rainfall begin to experience longer dry periods, while other regions see increases in precipitation that support the expansion of forest vegetation into areas that have been grassland for thousands of years. The growing seasons that have determined the timing of plant growth and animal reproduction begin to lengthen as spring arrives earlier and autumn extends later into what were traditionally winter months. These changes in seasonal timing create mismatches between the life cycles of interdependent species, disrupting the carefully synchronized relationships that have evolved over millions of years and creating new selective pressures that favor different adaptive strategies. The vegetation communities that form the foundation of grassland ecosystems begin to show responses to changing climatic conditions through gradual shifts in species composition and distribution patterns. Trees and shrubs that were previously restricted to protected valleys and stream courses begin to expand into upland areas as increased precipitation and milder temperatures create favorable conditions for woody plant establishment and growth. The northward migration of plant species that prefer warmer climates begins to alter the character of vegetation communities across vast areas, as southern species gradually establish populations further north, while northern species retreat toward higher latitudes or higher elevations where they can find the cooler conditions they require for survival. This process of species migration occurs over centuries and millennia, with each generation of plants establishing slightly further north than their parents as climate conditions continue to change. The forest ecosystems that have been restricted to more humid and protected areas begin to expand their range as changing precipitation patterns and reduced fire frequency create conditions favorable for tree establishment in areas that have been grassland for thousands of years. The encroachment of forests into grassland areas represents one of the most visible signs of ecosystem transformation, as the open landscapes that have characterized this region begin to give way to more closed canopy environments. The large herbivore populations that have thrived in these grassland environments begin to face new challenges as their preferred habitat becomes fragmented by expanding forests and changing vegetation patterns. The massive herds that have roamed freely across vast expanses of continuous grassland find their movements increasingly constrained by geographic barriers and habitat discontinuities that force them to modify their traditional migration patterns and territorial strategies. The specialized grazers that have evolved to thrive on grassland vegetation find themselves at a disadvantage as plant communities shift toward species that are less palatable or nutritious than their traditional food sources. The co-evolved relationships between grazers and grasses that have sustained large herbivore populations for millions of years begin to break down as new plant species establish dominance in many areas. The predator communities that have specialized in hunting large grassland herbivores face their own challenges as prey populations decline and become more scattered across increasingly fragmented habitat patches. The cooperative hunting strategies that have proven so successful for saber-toothed cats require large concentrations of prey animals that may no longer be sustainable as ecosystem conditions continue to change. Our magnificent saber-toothed cats, those supreme predators who have dominated these grasslands for so many millions of years, begin to demonstrate subtle behavioral changes that reflect their responses to the gradually changing conditions around them. Their hunting success rates may decline slightly as prey animals become more dispersed and difficult to locate, while the energetic costs of maintaining large territories increase as suitable habitat becomes more patchy and discontinuous. The reproductive success of large predators begins to show the effects of changing environmental conditions through slight but persistent declines in cub survival rates and longer intervals between successful breeding attempts. These changes are so gradual that they would not be apparent over the span of individual lifetimes, but their cumulative effects over many generations begin to influence population dynamics in ways that will ultimately prove decisive. The smaller animal communities that have thrived in grassland ecosystems demonstrate greater flexibility in adapting to changing conditions, with many species able to modify their behavior and habitat use to accommodate new environmental realities. Some species benefit from the increasing habitat diversity that results from the invasion of grasslands by woody plants, while others struggle to adapt to the loss of the open habitats they have specialized to exploit. The migration patterns that have connected distant ecosystems and allowed for genetic exchange between far-flung populations begin to show disruptions as traditional corridors become blocked by changing vegetation patterns or geographic barriers created by rising sea levels. These disruptions of gene flow can lead to the isolation of populations and increased vulnerability to local extinctions. The human populations that are beginning to appear in some regions represent a new and unprecedented factor in ecosystem dynamics, bringing with them technologies and behavioral patterns that can rapidly alter environmental conditions in ways that natural climate change processes would require centuries to accomplish. The hunting technologies developed by early humans allow them to harvest large animals with efficiency that exceeds that of natural predators, while their use of fire begins to alter vegetation patterns on landscape scales. The co-evolved relationships between species that have taken millions of years to develop begin to show signs of stress as environmental changes occur more rapidly than evolutionary processes can accommodate. The intricate balance of predator-prey relationships, pollination partnerships, and seed dispersal mutualisms that characterize mature ecosystems becomes increasingly unstable as component species respond to environmental changes at different rates and in different ways. The disease and parasite dynamics that help regulate animal populations in stable ecosystems begin to show changes as stress from environmental change makes animal populations more vulnerable to pathogens, while also creating opportunities for the emergence of new diseases that can spread rapidly through populations that lack evolved resistance. The soil ecosystems that support terrestrial life begin to experience changes as altered precipitation patterns and temperature regimes influence the rates of organic matter decomposition and nutrient cycling. The rich, fertile soils that have supported grassland productivity for thousands of years may begin to change in ways that favor different types of vegetation and support different levels of biological productivity. The water resources that have sustained large animal populations through dry seasons and drought years begin to show changes in availability and reliability as shifting precipitation patterns and increased evaporation rates alter the hydrological cycles that have governed ecosystem function for millennia. Some traditional water sources may become unreliable while new ones develop in different locations. The fire regimes that have helped maintain grassland ecosystems by preventing the establishment of woody vegetation begin to change as altered precipitation patterns influence fuel moisture levels and lightning frequency. Changes in fire frequency and intensity can rapidly alter vegetation communities and influence the suitability of habitats for different animal species. The adaptability that has allowed grassland ecosystems to persist through previous climate changes will be tested once again as the current transformation continues, with some species proving capable of adapting to new conditions while others face declining populations and eventual extinction. The evolutionary processes that have shaped these communities over millions of years continue to operate, but the rate of environmental change may exceed the rate at which adaptation can occur for some species. The genetic diversity that exists within animal and plant populations provides the raw material for evolutionary adaptation to changing conditions. But populations that have been reduced in size or isolated by habitat fragmentation may lack the genetic variation necessary for successful adaptation to new environmental challenges. The ecosystem services that grassland communities provide, including carbon storage, water regulation, and soil formation, begin to change as species composition and ecosystem structure respond to new environmental conditions. These changes can have far-reaching effects that extend well beyond the immediate grassland ecosystem and influence regional and global environmental processes. As we observe these gradual but profound changes beginning to unfold across this ancient landscape, we witness one of the great transitions in Earth's history, a transformation that will ultimately bring the age of Pleistocene giants to its close while setting the stage for the very different world that will emerge in their wake. As the deepest hours of night settle over this ancient grassland and the Pleistocene stars shine down with their timeless radiance, we find ourselves contemplating not only the magnificent present moment, but also the eternal legacy that these remarkable creatures and their extraordinary world will leave for future generations to discover and wonder at. The story of the saber-toothed cats and their grassland kingdom will not end with the gradual environmental changes that are beginning to reshape their world, but will instead be preserved in stone and sediment, waiting patiently through millions of years for curious minds to uncover their secrets and reconstruct the glory of this vanished age. The fossilization processes that will preserve evidence of this Pleistocene paradise operate with the same patient persistence that characterizes all geological phenomena, gradually transforming the bones and teeth of these magnificent creatures into permanent records that will survive long after the last grassland has given way to forest and the final saber-toothed cat has drawn its last breath. The alkaline soils of these grasslands provide ideal conditions for fossil preservation, as the chemical environment prevents the rapid decay that would otherwise destroy all traces of these remarkable animals. The tar pits that dot various landscapes across this ancient continent represent some of the most extraordinary fossilization environments ever created by natural processes, where countless animals will become trapped over thousands of years and preserved in astonishing detail. These natural traps, formed by crude oil seeping to the surface and losing its volatile components to evaporation, create sticky masses that can immobilize even the largest and most powerful animals, preserving them so perfectly that scientists millions of years in the future will be able to study not only their bones and teeth, but also fragments of skin, fur, and even stomach contents. The lake bed sediments that accumulate season after season in the numerous water bodies scattered across this grassland preserve their own treasure troves of information about Pleistocene life, capturing pollen grains that reveal the exact composition of ancient plant communities, insect remains that document the incredible diversity of arthropod life, and the bones of countless small animals that provide detailed pictures of ecosystem structure and function. These sedimentary archives will serve as libraries of ancient life, storing information with a fidelity that exceeds any human historical record. The cave deposits that form in limestone regions provide yet another window into Pleistocene life, as the bones of animals that died in caves or were brought there by predators accumulate in protected environments where they can be preserved for geological time periods. The calcium carbonate that precipitates from groundwater in these cave environments often coats and infiltrates bones, creating fossils of extraordinary beauty and scientific value, that will astound future researchers. The footprint trails that these magnificent creatures leave in the soft sediments near water sources become preserved when subsequent flooding covers them with fine silt or sand, creating trace fossils that provide unique insights into animal behavior, social organization, and locomotion patterns. Future paleontologists will be able to follow the trackways of saber-toothed cats as they moved across these ancient landscapes, reading stories of hunts, family interactions, and territorial behaviors written in stone. The coprolites, fossilized dung deposits left by these ancient animals, will provide future scientists with incredibly detailed information about diet, health, and ecosystem relationships that could never be obtained from bones and teeth alone. The plant fragments, bone chips, parasite eggs, and other microscopic remains preserved in these specimens will offer intimate glimpses into the daily lives of creatures that have been extinct for millions of years. The amber deposits that form from the resin of ancient coniferous trees create time capsules of extraordinary completeness, preserving insects, plant fragments, and even small vertebrates in perfect three-dimensional detail. These golden treasures will provide future researchers with specimens so perfectly preserved that they appear to have died yesterday, rather than millions of years ago, complete with original colors, fine structural details, and even DNA that may be recoverable for genetic analysis. The permafrost deposits that exist in northern regions during glacial periods create natural refrigerators that can preserve organic materials with remarkable fidelity, including soft tissues, fur, and other perishable materials that normally decay rapidly after death. The frozen remains that accumulate in these environments will provide future scientists with specimens that offer unprecedented insights into the anatomy, physiology, and genetics of Pleistocene animals. The volcanic ash deposits that occasionally blanket large areas of the landscape create exceptional preservation conditions by rapidly burying organisms and protecting them from scavengers and decay processes. These volcanic events, while temporarily devastating to local ecosystems, create fossil assemblages of extraordinary completeness that capture detailed snapshots of ancient life at specific moments in time. The future discoveries that await in these various fossil deposits will revolutionize our understanding of Pleistocene life, providing evidence of creatures and behaviors that would otherwise remain unknown to science. The sophisticated hunting strategies of saber-toothed cats will be revealed through bone modifications on prey species, tooth wear patterns that document dietary preferences, and isotopic signatures that reveal migration patterns and territorial ranges. The advanced technologies that future scientists will develop for studying fossils will extract information from these ancient remains that seems almost magical by current standards. Computed tomography scanning will reveal internal bone structures and brain cavity shapes that provide insights into sensory capabilities and cognitive abilities, while mass spectrometry will decode chemical signatures that document ancient diets, migration patterns, and environmental conditions. The genetic information that may be recoverable from exceptionally well-preserved specimens will provide the ultimate insights into the evolutionary relationships and genetic diversity of these extinct giants. Ancient DNA sequences may reveal how these creatures adapted to changing environments, how closely related different populations were, and what genetic factors contributed to their eventual extinction. The ecological reconstructions that will be possible using fossil evidence will paint incredibly detailed pictures of ancient ecosystems, revealing not only what animals lived together, but also how they interacted, what they ate, how they moved across the landscape, and how they responded to environmental changes. These reconstructions will provide cautionary tales and inspiration for modern conservation efforts. The artistic interpretations that future paleontologists and artists will create based on fossil evidence will bring these ancient worlds to life for new generations of admirers, helping to foster appreciation for the natural world and understanding of evolutionary processes. The magnificent saber-toothed cats will capture imaginations and inspire conservation efforts to protect the remarkable predators that still exist in our modern world. The educational value of these fossil discoveries will extend far beyond pure scientific research, providing tangible connections to deep time that help people understand their place in the grand sweep of evolutionary history. The bones and teeth of saber-toothed cats will grace museum halls and inspire countless young minds to pursue careers in science and conservation. The conservation lessons that emerge from studying the extinction of these magnificent creatures will provide crucial insights for protecting modern ecosystems and preventing the loss of today's remarkable wildlife. The environmental changes that contributed to the end of the Pleistocene megafauna offer sobering parallels to current environmental challenges and emphasize the importance of proactive conservation efforts. The technological innovations that emerge from studying the biomechanics of saber-toothed cats may inspire new engineering solutions for modern problems, as researchers learn from the evolutionary refinements that made these predators so effective. The precision-killing mechanisms of saber teeth may influence the design of surgical instruments, while their cooperative hunting strategies may inform robotics and artificial intelligence applications. The philosophical reflections that these fossil discoveries inspire will enrich human understanding of mortality, change, and the impermanence of even the most successful evolutionary experiments. The rise and fall of the saber-toothed cats reminds us that all species, including our own, exist within the context of deep time and environmental change. The sense of wonder that these magnificent creatures evoke will persist long after their fossil remains have been discovered and studied, inspiring new generations to appreciate the incredible diversity and beauty of life on Earth. Their story reminds us that our planet has supported remarkable communities of creatures for hundreds of millions of years, and that we are privileged to witness and participate in this ongoing evolutionary experiment. The interconnectedness revealed through studying ancient ecosystems emphasizes the importance of understanding and protecting the complex relationships that exist in modern environments. The delicate balance that sustained Pleistocene grasslands offers lessons about ecosystem management and the consequences of disrupting natural relationships. The resilience demonstrated by life through countless environmental changes provides hope and inspiration for addressing current environmental challenges, while also emphasizing the importance of maintaining the genetic and ecological diversity that provides the foundation for evolutionary adaptation. As the stars continue their eternal dance above this ancient grassland and the gentle giants rest peacefully in their temporary kingdom, we can take comfort in knowing that their legacy will endure long after their time has passed. In laboratories yet to be built, scientists yet to be born will marvel at the perfect engineering of saber teeth, the social sophistication of pack hunting strategies, and the ecological balance that sustained these remarkable creatures for millions of years. Their fossilized remains will serve as ambassadors from deep time, carrying messages about the wonder and fragility of life that transcend the boundaries between past and present. Through careful study and thoughtful interpretation, future generations will come to know and appreciate these magnificent predators as we have come to know them tonight, not as fearsome monsters, but as remarkable products of evolutionary refinement, devoted family members, and essential components of one of Earth's most successful ecosystems. And so, as we drift toward peaceful sleep beneath these ancient stars, we can rest knowing that the story of the saber-toothed cats will continue to unfold long after we ourselves have become part of the fossil record, inspiring wonder and reverence for the natural world and minds yet to be born, and reminding future generations that they too are part of the grand evolutionary experiment that has made our planet a garden of remarkable diversity and beauty.